Hello everyone. Today I am back with another tutorial. In this video, we are going to learn about the shared preferences in Android. Let's begin. So what is shared preferences? In Android, share preferences is a simple key value storage system used for storing small piece of data like user preferences, setting, or other lightweight data that needs to be processed across application sessions. It allows you to store primitive data type such as string, int, boolean, etc. in a persistent storage which can be accessed later even if the app is closed and reopened. Okay, we can access the data even after the app is closed and reopened. Okay, so when to use the shared preferences? So storing small preferences, example like user setting, login states, theme selection. Avoid using for large data set if you need to store the large amount of data, structured data. Amount of structured data, consider using database like SQLite or file instead of shared preferences. So what are the limitation of shared preferences? Not idle for large data. Shared preferences is not meant for storing large data such as images, large arrays, or complex object. No data structure support. Unlike database or file storage, share preferences only support simple key value pair, making it inappropriate for more complex data structures. Okay, so let's begin. So let's understand it by giving one example. Let's open the Android Studio first. So first we need to take the new project. Let's take new project over here. And here I need to select first the empty views and activity and click next over there. Now let's name it as any name you can give. I am giving it as shared preference, and the package name here will be the same, and the language I am selecting here is Kotlin, and the minimum SDK I am selecting is Android 7.0. Okay, any SDK you can select according to your choice. If you select the Android 7.0, your app will run approximately on 97.4% of devices. Now click finish. Now the project will start create. Okay, let's wait for the project finish. So you can see the project has now successfully been created. Now we are going to create one form and going to save it data. And after closing the application, we are going to fetch that data and going to display on our fragment. Okay. So first we need to enable the data binding over here and go to the build.gradle module app over here and enable the data binding. I will write over here is build features, build features, and here I will enable the data binding. Let's enable the data binding and I will set it to true. Okay, now click on sync now button over here. Now after the enabling the data binding, I will go to my layout file over here, go to activity main XML file over here and click on split, and I will show context section and convert to data binding layout. Okay, let's clear this. Now I have to take one frame layout inside our activity main XML file over here. Let's save it and change this constraint layout to frame layout. Let's change this constraint layout to frame layout first. Okay. Now remove this text view and let's give one ID to the frame layout, and I will give it as ID home frame. Okay. Now I need to take one fragment. Let's take one fragment and going to display those fragment on our frame layout. Let's save it. Now let's take fragment, right click over there and I will take one new fragment. Let's take one fragment, click here, blank fragment, and I will name it as home fragment and click finish. Now go to our fragment home file over here and click on split and click here show context section and convert to data binding layout. Remove this line. Now I will change the frame layout to constraint layout. Okay, and remove this text view over here. Now I'm going to design one form. Okay, let's go to the fragment home over here and design the layout of our form. I will design the layout. Let's take one edit text over here. After the constraint layout, let's take one edit text. Let's take one edit text, app compact, edit text. Okay, and I will set its width to 0 dp, and the height I will set is as wrap content, and specify the constraint. And I am specifying is horizontal constraint as start to start of parent, and top to top of parent. Okay, as you can see, now I will specify the end to end of parent. Okay, let's give it some margin horizontal, and the margin horizontal I am giving it as 20 dB. Okay, here is our edit text. Let's give some margin top, and the margin top I am giving it as 10 dB. As you can see over here, let's give it some hint over here, and I'm giving the hint as username. Let's enter the hint over here as user name, or you can say enter username. Okay, let's extract the string resource. Click Alt plus enter over here, extract the string resource and click OK. Okay, now give it some ID over here, and I'm giving it ID as username et. Let's close this. Now I will take another text view below this. So I need to do the first, I will copy this and paste it below it. Okay, let's save some time. Let's copy it. Control C and paste it over here. And let's change the top to bottom of. I will change this start to stop or parent, and top to bottom of it will move towards the top to bottom of username et. As you can see, let's change its ID. ID I am setting is as age et. Okay, and the hint I am entering as enter the age. Let's set the hint as enter age, and I will pass the username and age and save it inside our share preferences. Okay, let's extract the string resource over here. Click Alt plus enter, extract string resource and click OK. Okay, now I will need to take one button. Okay, let's take button below this, and I'm going to save those data by the click of the button. So let's take button below this. So let's take button, and I will pass here app compact button, and let's specify the width and height. I am specifying as wrap content, and the height I am also specifying as wrap content. And let's specify the constraint, and I'm specifying the start to start of horizontal constraint to start of age et, and top to bottom of age et. As you can see, the button moves over here, and let's set the text of the color button. I am setting the text as submit. Any text you can set. You can also set the save. I am setting as submit. Okay, and let's extract the string resource. Click Alt plus over here and click OK. Alt plus enter and OK. Okay, let's give it some ID and give ID to the button, and I'm giving it as submit button. Okay, let's close this, and you can also give some margin up from the top. I'm giving the margin top as 10 dB. Okay, now I need to take the another button after this button to display the saved data. Okay, let's copy this and create the another button. And let's change the constraint over here. So I will need the button after the end of this that specify the uh, horizontal constraint. I will need start to end of submit button. Okay, and top to bottom of HTTP. And let's change the ID to view button. And let's change its text. I am setting the text as view. Okay, as you can see, let's extract the string resource. Click Alt plus enter. Extract the string resource and click OK. Okay, so this is my submit button. As you can see, this is my design. So this is my submit button and this is my view button. And I need to take the third button so that I can clear the data which are saved inside our shared preferences. On the click of that button, I will clear the data. So let's take one button after this. So let's copy this and paste it over here. And let's change the constraint start to end of view button. And let's change its ID. ID I am setting a clear button. Let's change its ID. As you can see over here. Okay. And let's also change its text. I am setting as clear. And let's extract the string resource over here. Click Alt plus enter, extract string resource and click OK. So this is our design of our home fragment. Okay, now we are going to display that record on our next fragment. Okay, for that I need to create another fragment. Let's create another fragment over here. So let's take another fragment over here. Click over here and new fragment. And I will take the blank fragment and let's name it as profile fragment and click finish. Let's move towards the profile fragment over here and click on split. And I'm going to take some text view over here and display those data on the text view. Okay, so let's take one text view over here. Let's remove this. I'm going to take the app compact text view. App compact. Let's first change this frame layout to constraint layout. Constraint layout. And here I will take one text view. App compact text view. And the width I'm setting at wrap content. Height I'm also setting at the wrap content. Okay, let's specify the constraint. Start to start of parent and top to top of parent. And I'm also specifying the end to end of parent. You can see this is our text view. Let's give some margin from the top. And the margin top I am setting as 10 dp. And let's give it some the type text size. And I am giving the text size as, let's give the text size as 16 sp. And also give it some ID. I am giving the ID as name TV. Okay, and let's close this. So below this text view, I need another text view. Let's copy this. Let's paste it below it. Let's specify the constant start to start of parent and top to bottom of. And change its ID to HTV. Okay, as you can see, this is my first text view and below it my second text view. Okay, let going to now I'm going to save the data and display on the data by on this text views. Okay, so in share preference, we basically pass the data in the form of key and value pair. Okay, so we take the key in the form of constants. Okay, the key value will never change. The key become will be the constant only. Okay, so let's take one constant over here, new Kotlin class file, and I am taking the object over here, and let's take it, and let's name it as constants. Okay, constant, and click enter. As you can see, now inside it, I will take the keys. Let's take the keys over here. I will create constant val, and here I will create the name key, and I will pass the data over here, and let's name it as name key. And the next key I am going to pass at the age key, constant val age key, and I'm going to name it as age key. Okay, now inside our home fragment, let's go to the main activity over here. And here I need to create the instance of binding. Let's create the instance of binding over here. Let in it where binding of type activity main binding. Now initialize it over here. Binding initialize to data binding util dot set content view, and it will take the two argument. The first is the activity, and the next it will take the layout, r dot layout dot activity main. Okay, now let's initialize the fragment and display it on our frame layout over here. Okay, let's create one function over here is init UI. Okay, click over here and create one function. Now inside the function, let's write sport fragment get sport fragment manager dot begin transaction dot replace, and it will take the two argument. First is the ID of the frame layout, which is r dot id dot home frame. Next one is a fragment, which is our home fragment, and next is dot commit. Okay, let's save it. Control S. Now I will move toward our home fragment over here, and let's remove this line first. Okay, and let's remove this, and let's remove this, and let's remove this companion object. So here I will override one function over here on view created. Okay, now I specify the logic of our shared preference over here. First initialize the binding over here, late init, instance of binding late init, where binding of type fragment home binding. Okay, let's initialize it over here. Let's remove this line. Binding initialized to fragment home binding dot inflate, and it will take the layout inflator. And the next argument, it will take the view group, which is I will pass the container, and attached to root I am passing here is false. Okay, let's change this to layout inflator. Okay, now I will return the binding over here. Return binding dot root, return binding dot root. Okay, Now I am going to late initialize this editor over here. Let initialize the shared preference editor over here. Late init where editor of type shared preferences dot editor of type shared preferences dot editor. Okay. Now I need to take one shared preference. Well, let's create the one variable over here. Val share file. I'm naming it as shared file. Shared preference file, and I am naming it as the name of our shared preference. It will the Kotlin shared preference. Kotlin shared preference. Okay. Now let's move to the on view created, and on view created. Let's create one function over here. Init UI. Okay. Click it over here and create one function. Let's create one function. Init UI. Now inside this function, let's pass the one. I will binding dot submit button. On the click of button, I will save the data. Dot set on click listener, and here I will pass the first. I will validate the data so that the empty data should not get entered. Let's create one function over here. Perform validation. First, I will perform the validation so that the empty data should not get entered. Let's perform the validation and click it over here and create one function perform validation. So this is my function. I will perform some validation over here. So inside this function, I will perform the validation. Let's perform the validation and let's enter the when statement. When, and I will enter the when statement and I will write binding dot username et dot text dot toString dot is empty, and I will display one error message over here. Binding dot username et dot error, and let's set the error over here is username is required. Username is required. Okay. Now same way I will pass the second validation over here. When binding dot age et dot text dot toString dot is empty, and let's perform the validation over here, and I will pass over here binding dot age et dot error, and I will pass over here is age is required, and else I will pass the data over here, and if the both the condition are satisfied, then I will pass over else. Pass the else over here. Else I will pass over here is store data. Let's create a function over here is store data, and let's click it over here and I will store the data if the record is not empty. Okay, let's specify the logic of our data over here. So here I will write first initialize the shared preferences over here. Shared preferences is initialized to. So first late initialize the shared preferences over here. Late init where shared preferences of type shared preferences. Okay. So after that, I will initialize over here inside our store data. So let's initialize it over here. So let's initialize the shared preference over here first. And the shared preferences will be initialized to require activity dot get shared preferences, and it will take the two arguments. First, the name of our shared preference, which I have set to shared file. Okay, here is the name of our shared preference, which is the shared file preference file. Let's pass it over here, shared preference file. And the next argument, it will take the shared mode. I am passing the context mode private context dot mode underscore private. Okay, now after this, I will pass. Let's initialize the editor here after the shared preference. Let's initialize the editor over here. Editor is initialized to shared preferences dot edit. Okay, now I am going to pass the data. Let's get the data from the edit text editor dot put string, and here I'm going to pass the constant over here. I will pass over his name. Let's pass the name key over here. Name underscore key. Okay, and import from the constants over here. Let's click this over here, and now you can see the second round will it will take the data, and I am getting the data from binding dot. Let's get the data from the edit text username et dot text dot toString. Okay, similarly I will pass the second argument editor dot put string, and here I will pass the age constant dot age underscore key, and get the data from the edit text binding dot aget dot text dot toString. Okay, now editor dot apply. Okay, so on the click of the store button, I will add the data. First, I will perform the validation. So here you can on the click of the submit button, first it will perform the validation. When the every thing goes right, it will store the data. Okay, on our local storage. Now, similarly I will do the functionality of the another button also. So go to the init UI over here, and on the click of view button, I'm going to display the data binding dot view button dot set on click listener. On the click of the view button, I will view the data. Let's click the function over here, view data, and click it over here. I'm going to create one function over here. Let's click from one function, create one function, view data. Okay, so this is my functionality of the second button, binding dot clear button dot set on click listener. So on the click on the clear button, I'm going to clear the data. So here clear the data, cleared. Let's call one function over here. I'm clear, let's cleared shared preferences. Okay, I'm going to pass the two argument over here. First is the require context, and the second I am passing it the name of our shared preference, which is shared file. Okay, let's click it over here and create one function. So inside this function, I'm going to clear the data. Let's clear the over here. First initialize the shared preferences is initialized to, or I can just copy it over here. Let's copy this line, Control C, and paste it over here inside our fun clear button. Let's paste it over here. Okay. Now I'm going to clear the editor dot clear, and I will apply here editor dot apply. Okay. So after inserting the record, we also need to clear the text from the edit text. Okay, after applying the editor, let's clear the edit text over here. Editor dot commit, and here after that, I'm going to display one toast message. Toast dot make text, and it will take the two argument. First is the context. I am passing here require context, and the second argument it will take the name. I am passing the argument over here, and here I am passing the context is require context. And now I am going to pass the one text over here. The record has inserted successfully. Let's pass the message over here. Records are entered successfully. Okay. After that, I am going to pass the duration of the toast dot length short and dot show. Okay. After that, I am going to clear the edit text or clear the data of edit text. So let's clear the edit text over here. Binding dot username et dot text dot clear, and here I am passing the null safety over here. Text dot clear. Let's remove this. What error I am getting over here? Only safe call. Okay. Let's passing again over here. Let's pass the binding dot username et dot text dot clear. Okay, and here it instead the replace with safety call. Okay, similarly I'm going to clear the text of our age et dot age et dot text dot clear, and here I will pass the safety call over here. Okay, so that the text will only clear if the records are over there. Okay, I will pass the safety call over here. Okay, similarly on the click of the view button, I'm going to display those data. Okay. Now similarly implement the functionality of our next button, which is a view button. So let's click it over here. And inside the view button, I'm going to display the fragment and going to display those data on our next fragment, which is a profile fragment. I will write over here that sport fragment manager, or I will write require activity dot sport fragment manager dot begin transaction. And here I will pass over dot replace, and here I will pass the ID of our frame layout, which is r.id dot home frame. And the next argument, it will take the name of fragment, which is profile fragment. And I will next pass here is the for add to backtrace for enabling the back button. Okay, for enabling the backward functionality, so that the if I press the back button, I move to the previous fragment. Okay, let's over here add to backtrace dot add to backtrace, and here is it asking for string. I am passing here is as null dot commit. Okay, now let's save it. Okay, now let's save it. First, let's check the code. Okay, everything is okay. And let's change it to private over here. And let's change it to private. And also make it private. Okay. Now let's save it. Now I will go to our profile fragment over here. First, go to the design file of our profile fragment and click over here, show context section, convert to data binding layout. Okay, now let's remove this line and let's save it. Now move to our profile fragment over here and let's remove this and remove the onCreate function over here. Okay, now remove this companion object. Okay, now I'm going to create the instance of our binding of our profile fragment. Let's create the instance of binding over here. So let initialize it over here. Let init where binding of type fragment profile binding, and let's initialize it over here. And binding initialized to binding is later to fragment profile binding dot inflate, and here I will pass the layout inflator, and next I will pass the container, and attached to root I am passing here is false, and I will return the binding over here. Return binding dot root. Okay, now let's create the instance of shared preference over here. Let init where shared preferences of type shared preferences. Okay, now let's override the one function on view created. On view created. So inside this function, let's create one another function, which is init UI, and click it over here and create one function. So inside the init view, I'm going to get the data. So inside it, I'm going to get the data. Let's create one function over here, get data, and click it over here and create one function, get data. So we are going to get the data and display on a text view. Okay, so inside it, first initialize the shared preferences. I'm at preferences initialized to require activity dot get shared preference, and here I will pass the name of our shared preference, which is, let's check the name of shared preference, which is Kotlin share preference. Let's copy it and move to profile fragment over here, and let's paste it over here, and and put it inside the double quotes. And the next argument, it will take the mode, which is private context dot mode private. Okay, now let's display the data. So I'm going to take the two variable and get the data. Val name, and is initialized to preferences dot get string, and here I will pass the key, which is name key, name underscore key. Let's get the key and click it over here and import property, and here I will pass the blank key over here, black string over here, and the next one is age. Well, age is initialized to preferences dot get string, and here I will pass the age underscore key, and let's click over here and import from constants and empty string over here, and now I'm going to display the dot data. Let's pass the binding dot name tv dot text, and I will pass the name over here, name, and let's check val age binding dot age tv dot text, and I will pass the age over here. Okay, now I have successfully created the shared preferences. Now I'm going to run it. So first let's check the code and change it to private, and also change it to private. Now let's run it and check how the application perform. Now let's run the app. As you can see, the app has successfully been launched. Here you can see there are two fields. First name is username and next one is age. Let's enter my name over here is JG, and let's enter my age over here, which is 29. Okay, if I press submit over here, and you can see that edit text field will be get cleared and the item gets saved. Okay, I got the toast message, record inserted successfully, and if I click on view over here, you can see, so this is my record which I have display on my next fragment. And if I click on the back button and again I will click over view, you can see the backward functionality also enable on the fragment. And if I want, if I clear the application, let's clear all the application over here, and let's run it again. Okay, let's move to Android Studio and let's run the app again over here. As you can see, after clearing the application, I am unable to see the records. Okay. Similarly, I can also clear the record by clicking on the clear. And if I click on the clear and if I click on the view, similarly, you can see there is no record over here. Okay. Hope you understand. I am also going to attach the file so that you can go through this. So this is the code, complete code I'm going to attach. Okay. So on the upcoming videos, we are going to learn about the Room database. Okay. Till then, thank you.